first, congrats on your Dynamo debut this past weekend against Seattle. How much did you enjoy, getting those first minutes with the Dynamo in front of the fans at Charlotte Stadium? And how do you think you can contribute to this team, moving forward into the season?
Thank you very much. And yeah, I was very pleased to get out there. I thought the reception from the fans were amazing. The support from, the teammates and the staff was also brilliant. And yeah, just want to hopefully contribute, as much as possible. I'm a striker, so obviously I want to score a lot of goals for the boys. And, even when you're not scoring goals, I want to, be able to play a part in the team, work hard, be a selfless player and just hope to contribute with results.
And, going into a two-match week this week, how was the team's intensity in training today as you guys prepare for these important matches?
Yeah, the team's intensity has been brilliant. Training's hard, we work hard, everybody puts it in, we all want to win. And, we just look forward, to the next game and, seeing what the outcome can be and, how we can get a result.
And what kind of match are you expecting against, Minnesota first at home on Wednesday and then to close off the week at FC Dallas? This will be your first Texas derby.
Yeah.
At Dallas. Just what kind of matches are you expecting?
Every derby, I'll start with the Dallas one. Every derby, it's a derby. It's important to the fans. It's important to the boys. It's important to both, sides, both teams. So I feel like, it'll be like any other derby. Everyone will be up for it. There'll be passion. It'll be physical. It'll be high tempo and high, intensity and stuff like that. As for the Minnesota game, we've done some analysis on them today, and they seem a very direct team, a very physical team. They're effective from set pieces, long throw-ins and corners, and they're big on first contact and then second contact. So we've just worked on how we can nullify them and impose our game and affect them.
Yeah, and you touched on it a little bit about derby, what it means to the team. How much do you enjoy derbies in general from your perspective?
Yeah, I think as players and stuff like that, there's every match has a buzz, but I feel like when there's something to play for, bragging rights, with derbies, there's something, it gets you up just a little bit more for it, and I think we'll go there confident and we'll just play our game, and that should hopefully get us the result.
Nice. Head over. Alex, do you have any questions?
Coach said this is a pretty important stretch for younger guys, newer guys, with it being so many games. How do you feel about it as far as, he said it's an opportunity for the guys to gain some minutes and compete for positions?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the amount of games and the space of time that we've got, I feel like, it's not just about an 11, I think it's about the whole squad. And, I feel like everybody's got to be prepared, the people that are starting, the people on the bench, because you never know what's going to happen at any point in these games. And I feel like, as I said, it's a whole squad that can contribute. It's not necessarily the team that always starts the game that wins the match. Also, subs have a big impact on the game, and they can change the game, as we saw in the Open Cup game last week. So I feel like everybody has to be ready and prepared, and just wait for what happens next.